With infinite complaisance, people went to and fro over the earth about their little affairs, serene in the assurance of their dominion over this small, spinning fragment of solar driftwood, which by chance or design, man has inherited out of the dark mystery of time and space.
So on this episode of Into the Fray, I welcome River on with me. He got in touch. He sent me a beautiful bullet point list of things that we are going to cover today. River, welcome on the show.
Hello.
So I know that it looks like we are going to go in pretty much chronological order, and I'm going to zip my lips as much as possible. So take it away wherever you want to start here.
Well, I'm trying to think of some, my earliest memories. And as it has on the list, there's that moment where I was waking up and hearing beeps, whether that was something paranormal or, something else. I don't know, but connecting that to other things that have happened during that time, it kind of is suspicious. I mean, this was back in the 80s, we didn't really have anything too high tech in the house. And my room was way off in the back of the house compared to like where everyone sat and watched TV and stuff. So I could have been hearing something from in there. I don't know. But this is followed by like waking up some point in the middle of the night and seeing what looked like those dancers or the band from the Robert Palmer music video.
That's where the women's hair is all slicked back and they have red lipstick on, right? Mm-hmm.
Right. The pale faces, the dark eyes, and so and through those childhood years, I never really made any connection to anything. It was just creepy, and I went to sleep and forgot about it. And then I would and just to say that a lot of this stuff is I can't really make any absolute claims that anything weird is actually happening, but they could all just be meaningless dreams. But how everything connects, just it's suspicious. You know what I mean? So one of the dreams that I would have would be, I don't know how old I would be, maybe 4 or 5, maybe younger, sitting in the driveway of our house and just suddenly being pulled up at an angle straight up into the sky, and just screaming in terror. And I had this dream probably 2 or 3 times, and then I would have dreams of police cars coming up to the house and feeling like, oh no, they're coming to get me. I wouldn't really see anyone coming out of the car, but it would just be, the flashing light, that feeling of paranoia of, something's going to happen. And I think, I was later in life, I had a diagnosis of Asperger's syndrome. So a lot of things could simply be weird autistic fears and sensory issues. So like the connecting to the whole police car thing, the sound of sirens always threw me into a panic. Not so much like police car kind of sirens, but that long droning, like what are the like tornado sirens?
Mm-hmm.
The real goes from real low to real high, and it's slow, and for whatever reason that's just creepy. And my parents would just lose their minds every time I would freak out over things that they took for granted. And then having dreams of seeing airplanes, just like first it's flying and then it just stops and just starts spinning in place. I mean, where I just don't know where all of this kind of stuff is coming from in a child's mind. Why would I dream this stuff? Why would I experience any of this? But then, all of those things are just small, kind of. They're significant, but they're they're small compared to this one memory of walking with my dad through. This was in this little community in Houston called North Shore, and we're walking through some empty parking lots. I don't know, we could have been, like, coming from church or something, and in one of the lots at the end is this house, just kind of there by itself, and so we walk up, and he knocks on the door, and this woman opens the door, this black woman, and they talk for a minute, and then she brings me inside, and he leaves. And she seems to try to put something on my hand. It felt sticky, like scotch tape or something. I don't know. I didn't see anything on my hand, but she does that, and then she sits me down at a table. And this room is dark. This wherever I am in this house is dark except for a light that's over this table where she sits me down, and there's a few other kids sitting there, and they're all very still and quiet. No one's talking, and we each have a like a cookie or something on a napkin in front of us. And yeah, nobody's talking, moving, no one's trying to eat the cookie, and that's it. And I've asked my dad, about this, and he has absolutely no memory of ever doing that. But then his memory's probably shot, so who knows? But that was like 40 years ago, and it's always stuck with me. And I don't know, I don't that's that's as much as I can remember regarding that. So
And to be clear, because you are very honest and you're saying, okay, now this was a dream. I'm quite sure this was a dream, but this over here is not a dream. This is a memory. This is a physical
right.
memory that you recall going to this place. Do you recall, I mean, you recall the sticky sensation on the hand. Do you
Right.
recall fear? Do you recall, I mean, looking at these kids like, why is nobody, there's all these cookies. No one's eating these cookies, right? That's also kind of strange.
Yeah, I don't know if I felt fear, just confusion, I guess. Like, why did he leave me here? Why am I sitting here? And I don't remember anything after that. I don't remember ever leaving. I don't remember anyone coming to get me. I just that's it. Like my mind goes dark after that. And it reminds me of this scene from Spielberg's Taken, where there's a scene where this kid who's one of the kids from one of the families that the show focuses on, and he has this book, a kid's book with like a cartoon squirrel. Well, there's a scene where the squirrel shows up at night outside of his window and is luring him to come outside. So the kid is like, I know this is not possible, but I can't help it. I'm going. So he goes with the squirrel to a tree, and the squirrel invites him into his, house inside the tree trunk. And so he goes in, and then the tree turns into a craft and flies off. So that's what it kind of made me think of. It's like I was brought to some imaginary place, and then that's it.
Well, and even though, like I said before, I do appreciate you saying, as far as I know, these were dreams. This one is not. It does make you wonder, though, because of the fact that it starts with some auditory stuff, right? Some beeps,
Mhm.
faces, pale faces in a window. We've heard that before. And
Right.
then supposed dreams also of being flown up into the sky and seeing
Mhm.
crafts, physical crafts. Whether those were airplanes or not, of course, we know
Right.
that regular aircraft don't spin in place. It does make you wonder, well, then are some of these then screen memories?
That's what I'm suspecting. So because like the faces thing, that was the 80s. I used to watch, music videos all the time, like VH1. I'd see the Robert Palmer stuff, and so that was probably the closest thing in my mind that cover that image. So I was maybe, less scared of it. But, it was still spooky, and I just like, "Nope, I'm going back to bed."
And you did obviously then bring that up to your dad. Do you remember bringing it up to him then or later on in life?
What, the daycare story?
Yeah.
I'm sure I brought it up several times. I don't remember ever talking to him about it, like, when I was a kid, but, years later, I'd think about it and say, "Hey, do you remember doing this?" He's like, "Nope, I don't." Like I didn't do that. It's like, all right, well, something happened.
Yeah, and then my brain goes to, well, was that ever even your dad? You know,
True, true. Yeah,
because
there's no way of knowing.
I mean, it's so classic. It's such a classic scene where you have this dark room. There's a table. No one's laying on it, but it's the only bright spot in the room with a light over it. You have other people that are just kind of out of it, right? They're just maybe almost there for show. I don't know.
And it's not that whole dark room with the light thing. That's not the only occasion of that. There's another story we'll talk about. So, and then there was this little spot on my finger, like on my knuckle. I don't know. It was like like a really tiny red triangle that was just on my knuckle for months, maybe longer. I always thought was weird. I had no idea where it came from. I didn't hurt myself. So there's that,
So,
that
and
connects to everything.
I'm sorry, I'm lying. I said I would zip my lips, but yeah, I'm just trying to tie everything together. Sorry, River.
Right.
Was this directly after the quote unquote daycare incident, or was
It had to have been.
Yeah.
I think I was older
Okay.
when I noticed that. I couldn't place a particular year or anything, but I think I was at least maybe 7 or 8 when I noticed that and remembered seeing it repeatedly, like, for a long time, wondering why is this thing not going away? So,
But then eventually it did.
it did. So, it could have been nothing, but,
Was it more
uh,
do you recall it being a gradual fading situation, like a scar, or did you just wake up and it was gone one day?
I really don't know.
No, that's okay. That's all right. No,
It
it's completely normal to not recall that stuff. I just want it because here's the thing, because people go, well, there's honestly any little tiny bit that you can recall, whether it's dream related or not, like the beeps, like the
Mhm.
red spot that's shaped like a triangle. Yeah, we can't flesh much out of that, but it's important because someone out there might be listening and go, oh my God, I had that same thing, or I have that same thing, right? And then that would then maybe put some things together for them. Like the beeps. Were the beeps
Mhm.
short bursts or were they long peals of beeps?
Just real short and not too loud either. It was just very quick and, there was no rhythm to it. It was just and I just remember being like waking up and hearing it and like where is that coming from? And just going back to sleep. So I don't know if there's any weird element to that or
Right.
if I was hearing something else, but I'm
Right.
just trying to piece together like all these different experiences to see if there's what I mean? There's some kind of real thing happening. Like I said, I don't want to make any absolute claims that yes, this is what's happening to me because I don't know. I don't have any real conscious memory of anything taking me. It's just everything just seems to be screen memory or dreamlike, or except for the two sightings that I've had. So
Well,
those things I remember clearly.
and I'm sure, River, that you are aware that you're not the first person that me or anybody else that does a podcast like this has spoken to that has a diagnosable something, right?
Hmm.
So, I mean, do you wonder then, of course, are they attracted to you because of that? Did they cause that somehow? I mean, I'm
You
not
know,
trying to
I've
get really conspiratorial, but
I've thought about that. I've actually thought about that, and there is one experience that someone else on the podcast talked about. That's the whole waiting room
mm-hmm.
experience. If you want to talk about that,
Yeah, go ahead and touch on that.
okay. So it was in 1999. So let's start off with my sighting because the sighting leads up to that. So I was with my uncle. I was hanging out with my uncle, his girlfriend, and her kids at her house. And this was an adjacent town from where I used to live. And back then, we had pagers. We didn't have smartphones or anything. So I had a pager. It was the thing, and I had a fancy one. And so I was kind of proud of it. And my friend Elvis, he pages me, and so I call back, and this is probably about 8 or 9 PM, I guess. And he says, "Dude, a UFO just flew over my house." And he was, I guess, where he was probably about 10 miles west of where I was. And so I thought, well, if this thing was flying in my direction, then I could probably see it. So I went outside, and sure enough, there it was. And it wasn't moving. It was just hovering there over the neighborhood. And it was this glowing orange thing, like a fireball, just sitting in the sky. And one of the kids went and grabbed some binoculars. So we got a really good look at it. It was sort of like teardrop almond shape horizontally. You couldn't really see like a surface. All you could see was this orange glow. But on the larger end of it, there was this deeper orange reddish glow that would fade in and out, kind of like in a breathing motion. And it would just move in one direction a little bit, and it would turn and go back the other direction, and then it finally flew slowly out of sight. And that was an incredible experience to see that, because that was definitely no drone, not in '99, maybe, but not what I saw. It was not a lantern or anything like that. This thing it looked alive. So it was like some kind of living plasma thing, whatever. I know there's been a lot of reports about stuff like that, but most of the reports I've heard is just being like a fireball, but this had shape to it. So after that sighting is when I had one of the most profound quote unquote dreams. And it starts where I'm sitting in what looks like just a clinical waiting room. I was sitting on a couch, and there was a coffee table, and there was another couch on the other side of the room. And I guess to my 11 o'clock, there's a a doorway that's lit up, and I noticed that the walls of this hall, because it was a hallway, were just bright light, pure bright light. So I stand up because at the foot of this hallway is a being laying on the ground. Like it was knocked unconscious, like maybe I bonked it. So I stand up and I walk over to get a closer look. And whatever, if it was its skin or if it was some kind of bodysuit or whatever, it was kind of iridescent, and it had a pattern to it, kind of scaly. And I look up to look further down the hallway and see that it leads to another room that's unlit. And then I sit back down on the couch and then look over at that being again. And this time its eyes are open and they're glowing orange like that craft. And then I suddenly have an extremely sharp, like piercing pain in my head. So I grip my head and my eyes are closed, and because it's pretty excruciating. And then I see myself in third person sitting on some kind of table, like a surgery table or something, in that dark room. Because and I knew it had to be that dark room because I could see the light from the hallway kind of bleeding in, and just kind of somewhat illuminating me sitting on that table. And then that was it. I wake up. And we were talking about the whole diagnosis thing. Well, this may be like a bit over the top speculation, but I swear, after that quote unquote dream, it's like my ability to kind of comprehend certain things, like higher concepts like consciousness, the nature of reality, and you know other occult things. It felt like I had a boost in cognition. Whether that happened or not, who knows? It might have been just maybe I suddenly had a new, maybe my interest in all of that kind of peaked, and it felt like that. But I remember feeling it and talking about it. So
Yeah, and you mentioned how similar that was to Angela's experience in episode 445.
Right,
her
right.
waiting room experience essentially. And that's a I don't want to say theme, like that's something that keeps coming up over and over, almost like if they're going to allow those of you who are quote unquote chosen to remember anything, if that's what's going on here, right? I mean, let's just go off that, like say that's all happening. Why do they allow this waiting room time to bleed through if so many other things seem to be blocked out, or screen memories of maybe that wasn't your dad, maybe that was somebody else? I mean, again, just
Right.
assuming the worst of everything or the most conspiratorial of everything. I just wonder, and I've said many times, I'm like, is that a screw up on their part, or is that them giving you a little tidbit of information, a little tidbit of what really has gone on enough to maybe where you don't go, nutty, thinking that you're nutty, and
Maybe.
I don't understand
Or
why.
maybe or maybe just enough so that you don't lose interest, you know?
Yeah.
So you don't, move away from the whole, phenomenon itself because you're not thinking about it. I don't know, that's one theory.
That's interesting. Like maybe they need your brain in that space. They need you to believe. They
Right.
need you to be interested. That is very interesting, River. I've never thought about that before. That's a really cool point. I mean, maybe there's
Well,
some kind of something that happens in your. I mean, there's all kinds of things in the brain that happen that we just do not understand. Probably never will. So maybe there's some level of that in there. That is extremely interesting.
yeah, I don't know. Just a passing thought. Didn't well,
I mean, you
let's
weren't. So
see.
you when you saw this being laying on the ground, even when
Yeah,
once it opened its eyes, were you afraid of it? Was there any fear? Do you remember that?
I think it was what happened was too quick because I looked over, saw the glowing orange eyes, and boom, the pain.
Right.
So I'm if anything happened at all, maybe I knocked it out or something trying to get away, or maybe it was pretending, who knows?
And that was in the
'Cause
90s. I mean, so if unless you were like really truly into the abduction scenario, I don't know what would have been out by then. How would you know that, in regards to this there should be pain in your head? Do you know what I mean? Like where would that even
Right,
come
right.
from?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, back then, let's see, I was 18. I mean, I was researching, like, weird stuff, but, I never I didn't really, like, delve into the whole UFO paranormal thing until after that, so it was I guess that experience is kinda what, catapulted me.
Well, it is of interest then also that there was this being. It looks like you're on some kind of a craft where there's couches. By the way, we've heard that before.
Really?
Chad and Alta Dillard, they were on. Oh gosh, I'm not gonna know the number. It was a long time ago. Alta's actually not with us anymore, but they were on a craft, and Chad was in this massive, massive room where he could see space outside, essentially. And he said there was this super comfy looking like an armchair, like a classic armchair in the middle of
Huh,
the room. And if I recall correctly, he just knew that he shouldn't sit in it, but it was there, like there's you're in the strangest place you can imagine, but then there's familiar things like couches and tables and chairs, and it's just very strange. But where I was sorry, before I went off on my tangent, it is at least to note then that there was this being, the pain in your head, and then this boosted kind of knowing, right? This boosted
yeah,
interest and boosted understanding of the things that you were already looking into.
right, right, and, I mean, it really did it did feel like that, like I just suddenly had this ability to understand things a little bit better. Whether that, whether anything was done to make that happen, I don't know, but it definitely felt like it. And there was another thing from my childhood experiences, which, is gonna hopefully make sense, is when I visited my grandmother or my great grandmother. She had this country house, and for like every Christmas we would go there to exchange gifts and have dinner and all of that. Well, the first time that I went, she had these bronze goose statues. There was no color to any of it. It was just a solid, dark bronze, and they terrified me. So they always had to remove those statues from the living area before I could be in there. And I think the reason why it's kind of similar to the faces in the window, because you had this slick, head, no hair or anything, certainly no feathers, and these vacant eyes. That's the only thing that I can think of that would make sense of why they scared me, because I didn't have any experiences with real geese to scare me, not at that time. So yeah, they always they would remove them every time I would come over there, because they had that similarity to your classic bald head, black eye being.
Were they almost life size? Were they quite large?
No, not really. I guess they were maybe a bit smaller than, an adult goose, but
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that I don't, that's the only thing I can think of is why they terrified me, or I'm just weird.
No, it probably ties in with something that you have experienced, right? I mean, just of all the things, and she probably had all kind of things in her house. If it's a country home, little piglet statues or cows or whatever, was in the home, of all the things to be terrified of. And for them to actually have to move them out of the, I mean, so that became a thing then. Before River
It
comes over, the geese have to go somewhere else.
Mhm.
Mm. I mean, did they ask you, River, what's your problem with geese? What happened, buddy? Like what's going on? I mean, did they try to get that out of you and you're like, I don't know.
They might have, but I think for the most part, they were just like, "What a weird kid," "What is he afraid of?" A lot of things, that freaked me out. I'm sure they were just like, "Oh my god, what are we gonna do with this?" Like I said, sirens freaked me out. One of the, I don't think this has any connection to anything, but one of the things that, like, I could not do with my mother or anybody was go through a car wash because of the noise. But I think that's just my weird brain.
Here's something else,
And
River,
then
just real quick
okay.
before you go on. I'm sorry. I told myself I was gonna,
No,
because I
it's
saw
fine,
your
it's fine.
list and I knew that I would have a ton of questions. I'm sorry, but before I forget this, I'm wondering if it's not even a whole nother opposite with your Asperger's syndrome. Is what if it's a scapegoat for them? I mean, what if that's just it's a perfect cover. I mean, so anything that you say, people can go, oh, well, I mean, he's diagnosed with something, of course, beeps, he hears beeps, and there's auditory things, and he might see things sometimes, and he's afraid of bronze statues of geese. I mean, that is, to me, that would tick me off. That sounds extremely unfair, because some of these things that you have experienced and seen, right? So
Yeah,
then we can't just, on the whole, dismiss everything else, even though you are admitting, which I appreciate that you are, that some of these, were in some kind of a dream state, at least as far as we know they were. Maybe none of it is. But to
right,
me, my mind is now going, gosh, I mean, what a great scapegoat for these things, to pick you, to pick anybody that has something that's diagnosed.
right. Huh, I never thought of that. That is interesting. Huh.
'Cause you're just so easily dismissed at that point by not everybody. I'm not saying that your parents are cruel or anything like that. I'm just saying, but it would make it more easily dismissible, which is very unfair.
Well, I don't think I've experienced that, but I do understand that point for sure, yeah.
I mean, like the goose thing. I mean, who knows? I mean, because I could just be you just didn't like the geese for whatever reason, and it may not be
Right.
tied into this huge conspiratorial. Oh, it has to do with because they look kind of
Yeah.
similar to weird being. I mean, it may be or it may not be. But, for them to go, oh, River's so funny and weird. And, uh, it could be, or it could be the total
Well,
opposite.
for an even more bizarre example is this experience with a toy ring. This, I mean, all the other things I can see how those things might make sense and tie in together, but this is just bizarre to me. And this I had this blue ring. It was kind of clear-ish plastic, and I thought it was really cool. So I go and show my grandpa, and he holds it between his index finger and his thumb, and then he moves them back and forth to make the ring flip back and forth over his fingers, kind of like, flipping, flopping back and forth. And for whatever reason, I just freaked out. I just like, I got really scared and started crying. The ring never bothered me, but to see that motion freaked me out. Isn't that just weird?
It is, and I can't even fathom how that might tie into some of the things that we're into and that we're discussing, right? Like
And see,
what?
that's another one of those things that I can't help but attribute to being, you know, neurally different. So
Right.
it's just some weird sensory thing that made me uncomfortable, or the only other explanation is that I saw something like that in an experience, and there was some subconscious response to it. But I think that might be reaching, could not, maybe it's not, but it's just one of those odd experiences that I've never forgotten. It's always stuck with me.
And again, I appreciate you saying that. You might be reaching, however, you may not be. And that's why I think it's so important that we both have your list pulled up. And I want to hit every single point because, again, somebody might go, "Oh, why are we even bringing that up? That's just not, you can't even go
Yeah.
anywhere with that." However, again, somebody out there might be going, "I have freaked out about the same kind of emotion. And I don't know why that motion triggered me, but it triggered me." So I think that every single point on here is valid, is important, and yeah, we can't flesh that out anymore, but it's worthy to note.
So let's see. Now, there are some other dreams that again could just be dreams, but they're very very specific, very vivid and linear. A lot of times, or most of the time, dreams are pretty all over the place, and you know, weird symbolism going on. And but this were just clear, and from there wasn't any like odd intervals, where one event's happening and then suddenly you're doing something else. This was straight, just like a memory, but I'm not going to call it that because it was definitely, it happened while I was asleep. So, and that was the first one, was standing in, well, I think I was boarding with several people onto a craft, and everyone is being taken in one at a time into a side room, and they sit on some kind of chair, and there's supposedly this is like medical examination to make sure every person is healthy and good to go for the trip. So I'm standing there watching people go through, and this, it's a very white roundish room. To my left, there is a very tall being of some kind facing away from me, and they're wearing like a cloak or a cape or something. So I don't see their face. They're just standing in a doorway looking somewhere else. And then somewhere, it wasn't exactly in the center of the room, just kind of off center, is this column, like kind of like a holographic pillar that was had like different lights and swirls and stuff in it. So I walk over to look at it closer, and then I feel someone trying to get my attention on my left side. So I look over and I look down, and there's this child looking up at me and smiling, and has these huge blue eyes, like looking at two universes. They were very crisp blue, incredible looking eyes, and he's just standing there and smiling at me. So that's my hybrid experience, because that's what it seemed like was it had to have been some kind of hybrid, because I know there's a lot of stories about hybrid children and all of that, but yeah, that was interesting, and it didn't feel like I said, these dreams don't really feel like dreams, but I know they are. And then following that, I think this one took place, I don't know, maybe 2 or 3 years ago, and so it starts off where I'm sitting in a lawn chair in the driveway of the house that I used to live in, where I was, playing in the driveway and got pulled up. Same house, and there's a few other people there. I don't remember if I knew any of them or not. So it's night, and we're watching craft fly over like a light show. And then this white pod slowly descends next to me, and out of nowhere, these pale beings show up, and it's like they're prepping me. They're doing something with me, prepping me. The pod opens, and these creatures their hands look, normal, like humanish, and their features. I didn't, that they didn't have like big weird eyes or anything. They had no hair, and they wore dark gray bodysuits. I guess I lie down in the pod and close my eyes, and then I wake up, so to speak, inside some kind of large interior, and I think there's like I'm on like a bed or something, and there's some other ones in the room, and this man comes over and asks me if I'm okay. Maybe he was a medic of some kind, and then I look around. I'm, sitting there, I look around for a minute, and directly in front of me, like in the distance, is just a woman standing there, or she's like dancing by herself, just kind of like interpretive. I didn't hear any music, but just standing there, moving around next to a plant, a strange plant. And then I look to my left, and there's this wide hallway, and it leads to an archway that's going to another area. And then I get up and I walk forward, and then to my right is another room, larger, like open area that had like technology, computers, and various different beings just working, doing, whatever they do. And then like right before that little area is a platform, like a raised platform. And it has stairs. You walk up to it as railing. So I walk up onto the platform, and straight ahead is this huge like window or screen in the wall. There wasn't anything on it though. It was just blank, or maybe it was looking into space or something. And while I'm standing there, two human-esque Nordic types come in, male and female, and they're wearing dark blue jumpsuits. I don't even think they were like one piece. I think they were just like pants and top, but it's all uniform color. The woman had short hair, kind of like a pixie. The man had like a bob, like long, sort of in the back, and with some bangs, so it's kind of shaggy. Both of them had dirty blonde hair, and I immediately thought of Travis Walton. So I asked them, if they were the ones who took Travis, and they're like, "Who?" "Oh, in the '70s. Yes, that was us." I'm seriously, that's the line that I heard. And then they didn't really seem interested in chatting, so they just continued walking out of the area. And so I then go down to the work area, and there's a blue being that I meet, not human looking at all, seemed to have like protrusions coming out of his head, and he said to me, that he was worried I'd be scared of him. I wasn't. He was nice. And then a girl with cat-like eyes comes up to me, takes my hand, and is dragging me around the area to like meet other people. And some of them looked at me like, "Who the hell are you?" And so we kept walking. And then she brings me to a food prep area. And so they offer me something to eat and even offer me coffee. So I was all about the coffee, but that's it. That was the end. And I wake up. That sound like a dream?
I mean, here's the thing. I have a lot of weird dreams. As you say, they're kind of all over the place, but I forget them usually the moment that I wake up. And
Right.
even then, I only remember pieces. The way you just described all of this, it is like you were
It
very
sounds like I made it up.
coherent. No, it sounds like you're very coherent, and you're just recalling this trip that you took to meet people that aren't people, obviously. Now, when you say that
Yeah.
this woman with the cat-like eyes was dragging you around to meet other people, those were people that you were
Well,
meeting?
I mean, I say people, but, I don't
Yeah,
mean necessarily human, but,
but they look like
some of
human.
them, they were bipedal, they
Uh,
had similar,
mm-hmm.
there were some similar features, like the eyes might have been different or something, but
Right.
character there that was way different was the blue one. I've, I have no reference for what that could be. I know some people talk about, like, what is it? The Arcturians or something like that. No, it wasn't anything like that.
Yeah, I mean, I have a lot of weird, kooky dreams, but me personally, I don't recall them, and I certainly don't recall them as if they were actual memories in my head. You know,
Right.
that's what.
And there was a there was a second dream that seems to connect to this one because those same pale beings show up in the gray suits, and they're walking me like I think I was in a car, and I get out of the car, and they're walking me into a building, and I had a very lucid moment and said to them, "Hey, haven't we done this already?" But no response, they never talk. And then suddenly I'm very Star Trek-y lounge, I guess you could say. It was a curved room, and there were windows and tables, and there was, like, some kinda weird food put out, and I tried the food, and it was like eating half-cooked spongy tofu. It was terrible, so did not eat, but I looked out the window and then I see Earth. And I don't know why, but every time that I see, like, huge celestial bodies in dreams, because 'cause I've had more than one like that, it's just overwhelming. I have to look away. It's like, "That's way too big, can't take it." So but I tried to look, and while I'm looking, I'm seeing us move, like, past like, through space, past other planets, and one of them looked, like a giant ball of liquid mercury, just kinda just spinning ball of mercury, and I think there were other beings there, but I think there was like a Tolkien-ish dwarf-like beings there, but that's all I remember from that, but I think it, connects because of those it was the same pale beings from that other dream. I don't think that I'm, like, going anywhere physically. I think this must be some kind of, psychic or astral kind of experience, or who knows, but maybe maybe it's just imagination again, but I don't know, these particular dreams just they're too linear and too specific, to just be a random dream, but I thought they were relevant.
Well, and details like the weird food, which
Yeah.
you took it a little further and said it was like half cooked tofu. I mean, those are the details that maybe someone might reach out to me because of things like that. So I appreciate you
Okay,
trying
okay.
to, bring up everything that you can remember from these dreams, which you remember a lot. Quote unquote
Yeah.
dreams, by the way. I'm putting
Right,
everything
yeah,
in
I
air
mean,
quotes because we just don't know.
yeah, so I don't like I said, I don't want to make any absolute claims about any of it. It's just all of it's very what's the word? Anecdotal.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the word. It seems like it's evidence of something, but who knows? And there was another experience. I guess I was when was this? 2016, I think. I was staying with a friend, and I'm sleeping on his couch. I wake up to 3 balls of light coming, like, up to the window, 'cause where I was sleeping, I could see a window in front of me. So, I saw these 3 balls of light, and then I start to feel myself, like, being lifted off the couch, and in that moment, I'm like, "No, no, no, not right now." And then it stops. So, that was something, I don't think to me, that wasn't just a random dream. That was I clearly remember, like, feeling myself coming off the couch, and I was like, "Nope, we're not doing this today," and it stopped. And, now I don't know if this connects to anything like alien, but where I am now, where I'm staying now, this might have happened a year and a half ago, and I've had sleep paralysis experiences a lot. I have other stories about that, but I don't really see them as being too relevant. But in this particular experience, I could feel movement behind my head, like by my pillow, like something was messing with me. And so I'm putting my hand back there to like try to see what it was. And then I see this short, like 3 or 4 foot, hunched over, hairy thing, this hairy creature walking away, like facing away, walking away from the bed, and I took something that was on the bed with me and threw it. And when I did that, it made this nasally groan, and then it was all over. I'm It's like, is that some kind of what are those things like sleep paralysis demons or whatever? I don't know what it was, but I distinctly remember that nasally groan as I threw something at it. It was I think it was kind of upset because I wasn't laying there scared of it. Because after everything that I've experienced, just none of it scares me anymore. I just face it. And I'm just like, "No, we're not doing that." Like the whole 3 lights thing. I was like, "We're not having it, not today." And
But
they just move on.
yeah, you gotta come at you with more than that, huh?
So I think in some experiences, there's gotta be some level of consent there, even if it's unconscious. I think the moment you're not allowed, you do not have permission, get out, I think they move on. Maybe that's just my experience, I don't know.
Or some level of fear. It seems like
Yeah, right,
they do
right.
enjoy fear too.
And then, I had another very, very lucid dream of, I was I was in some kind of underground house, and so I'm climbing up, like, the ladder to go out to the surface, and when I get to the surface, there's this alien landscape that's just sparkling and silver, there's kinda like a silver city in the distance, and then there are these 2 beings that were just pure silver, like, no color at all, just look like stoic statues that were alive. So, it makes me wonder if, sometimes in these dreams that they're just your consciousness is going elsewhere, experiencing different universes or something. But, I mean, I know that probably doesn't really connect to any of my childhood weirdness, but I thought it was interesting.
I don't know, River, or it may all connect. It could
It
be
may,
one
yeah.
or I mean, it's one or the other. Some may connect, or it all just is in fact our brains making this stuff up. But
Mhm.
there are a few instances where you have definitely seen things with your own eyes. Can we cover
Uh,
the green laser pointer incident?
yeah, yeah, that was I was gonna bring that up. Completely forgot about that. So, uh, let's see, this was about 2007, I guess, maybe 2008, and I'm with some friends in downtown Houston, and we're hanging out at this 24-hour Starbucks we called the Beast. And so I had my green laser and I was just, pointing it at buildings and street signs and stuff. And I half joked about signaling aliens. So I was kind of like shining it up into the sky. No aircraft around, so not blinding any pilots. But see, we left there, I guess, like an hour later to go back to my house, which is, I guess, about 18 miles or so away from the Starbucks. And so we went in to watch some TV. Around 3 a.m., the magic hour, my friend decides to go home, and so I'll walk with him outside. Within seconds, an orange light flashes over us like 6 or 7 times, just right above us. It was 3 in the morning, no clouds, didn't see any airplanes, just this stationary light. So it was like it acknowledged my signaling. So that felt like communication, and I haven't seen anything that incredible since then. I mean, I did see, like I did have sort of like a CE5 kinda thing a few years ago, but nothing like that.
Yeah, talk about that. I mean, for lack of a better term, the CE5 experience. Since you brought it up, just tell that whole thing as much as you can.
Well, so my stepmother is keen on watching the stars and looking at the planets, and so we were sitting out. I don't know what it was a cold time of the year, and we had these lounge chairs and her telescope, so we were looking at Saturn and the moon and stuff. For a little while, we were just laying in the chairs looking up at the sky, and I think we were listening to some kind of paranormal radio show or something. And so I thought I would kinda try one of those CE5 things, like the projecting your location and, all of that stuff. I didn't play the crop circle tones or anything like that. I was just kinda doing this thing mentally. And then we see this white light come over across, not directly above us, but a little bit further in front of us, just slowly moving. We thought at first it was probably just a plane, but then it rapidly curved upwards and back up into space. So we both saw that, and that was pretty cool. But that was really the last time I've seen anything. I've had my weird dreams and stuff, but most of the bizarre experiences that from childhood and the 1999 sighting, it's I don't experience anything anymore, not really. Just aside from the very vivid dreams.
Yeah, so things like seeing the faces outside of the window, you haven't seen anything like that since you were a young child, right?
Not that I remember, but I definitely do not like to have open windows when I'm asleep, so I shade everything so I don't have to see it.
I definitely have heard that before, and who could blame you guys for doing that? So, what about some of the ghostly experiences you have listed here?
Oh, yeah, let's see, I was maybe 20 something, and so I have my friend Brandon and his girlfriend at the time, and we were kinda doing our own little paranormal investigation stuff, and I was pretty sensitive to that kind of energy, and his girlfriend was, and so we were going to different places. We went to, I think, what is it, Poppet's Way in Conroe, where I think, like, one of the poltergeist stories was, like, loosely based on or something. And then we went to this bridge that someone told us was haunted or that someone died there, so we were like, "Well, let's go check it out." So we parked and walked down on the side of the bridge, and immediately you can feel it, if you know what I mean, that thick, vibration of whatever is there. And so we were like, yeah, there's something here. So we were trying to tune into it. And so I would, and I've had this experience a few times where I would really try to like focus in on whatever is there and start getting flashes to, like seeing whatever might have perished there. And I would just get these flashes of things like not like smooth movement, but like, I don't know how to explain it, like a film that's been cut in certain places. And so the movement's really erratic. And one of the what I saw was this girl that was just drenched, like wet hair, wet clothes, and like I said, that movement was like coming towards you, but not in a smooth way. It was just like bang, she's right there in front of you. And then we started to try to pick up on a name, and I was getting a K name, couldn't place it, and we looked around the area and we found this little white, I guess, burial like tombstone of some kind, just really small. You wouldn't see it unless you were looking for it, so we brushed the dirt off, and sure enough, there was a K name on there. I couldn't really read it, but there was a very clear K on there, which was really interesting.
Mm.
And then that night, I I'm dreaming that I'm there with her on on some kind of shore, like some beach, and there's a fire, and she's freezing, and nothing I could do could warm her. The fire wasn't working, nothing, and then suddenly I'm laying in bed, and she's right there over me and pulls the covers off of me, and then I wake up. So that's the what I call the bio girl experience. And then I guess a few years later, I'm at my grandparents because I lived there for a while, and my uncle, my grandfather's son, he passed away I think in '97, and so I would after I guess a year or so, I decided to take over his room, and I had a phone line specifically, my own phone line for a little while, but after about the time of this experience, I didn't have a phone connected to it anymore. The line was still paid for, it was still active, but there wasn't any phone on it. So I'm away somewhere, I'm arriving home, and there's a cop car parked outside. So I get out and say, what's going on? Why are what are you doing here? And he said that they got a call, like a 911 call. And I asked, well, what number? And he gave the number of the phone line that we don't use. And I was like, did you hear anything? Did anybody say anything? He was like, no, it was just static. So I can only assume that it could have been like my uncle trying to give us a heads up because a year later my grandfather died. So it felt kind of like a warning, I guess, or like he was letting us know that something was about to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And in this house before my grandfather bought it was like an orphanage, sort of like a foster home for several kids. And if you go into the closets of each bedroom, you can see like the kids' initials that they've written in there. Well, so one, I don't think it was night. I think I was just napping, and I get this dream of being in the house and seeing the conditions of the house during the time the kids were there. And I would see these little mattresses on the floor, like no proper beds or anything, just mattresses all over the place. No, not really any furniture anywhere. And then I'm dreaming of lying in bed and hearing a child cry, and it's getting louder and louder, like it's getting closer and closer until it's right next to me. And I go into that paralysis mode. So I have this theory that something from, whatever that dimension is, if interacts with you, and somehow it causes your mind to wake up, but not your body. So that's what it felt like they like whatever this kid was trying to get my attention, and a kid that probably died in the house. And I asked my mom about it, telling her about what I saw and everything, and she said that's exactly what it was like. Those are my ghostly experiences.
Yeah, that is pretty cool. So this sleep paralysis, you say that you have had quite a bit of sleep paralysis incidents over the years.
Mhm. Yeah, and I don't, from what I remember of them, I don't ever see anything, but I feel that really uncomfortable vibration, like electricity, and it's always freaky, but I just, like, power through it, like, come on, get it over with." But I've never, like, seen any shadow figures or anything, but I did have a girlfriend who came over, stayed over, and I was at my computer, probably, like, on AOL or something, and she was asleep, and she starts making noise and then sits up real quickly, and it's like she says, "I couldn't move." And I couldn't scream or anything, and there were bugs crawling all over the walls, and there was this small black creature sitting on me with big blue eyes and sharp teeth. I've never seen anything like that.
And
That was,
had she had experiences on her own outside of being at your house or in your presence before that?
I don't think so.
Mm,
At least she didn't tell me.
right.
She didn't bring anything up like that. So, I think that house, because that house is weird. It's anybody who's ever walked in there, like, I've had friends come over and it's like, I can't go into that room. I just feel whatever is in there, I can't go in there.
And it's always that same room.
Well, the room that I was in was my uncle's room, and people were usually okay going in there, but the middle bedroom between, like, in the hallway, there was, you walk down the hallway, and there's that room, and then my grandpa's room is on one side, and then my room is right across from his. So we called that one room the middle room, and nobody would ever wanna go in there. I don't know why, because that wasn't his room. I don't maybe a lot of bad things went on in that room whenever it was the foster home, but yeah, I mean, I could feel it, but it never really bothered me. But that was that experience of her, what she talked about was the first thing that anybody, as far as I know, had experienced in that house, and she hadn't experienced anything before then. So I don't know.
Well, River, were there any other experiences that you wanted to share or anything you wanted to say before we sign off?
I think that's it.
And I just want
I
to say to
mean,
anybody out there listening, if anything jogged you guys' mind or memory, or if anything sticks out at all with some of these, they seem minuscule, these little tidbits that River shared today, but I guarantee you they're probably not to somebody. And if you're that somebody, reach out to me, Shannon at intothefrayradio.com. That is my email address. Or, of course, you can go to the website or any of my social media outlets and get in touch, because I know that I would like to hear it, and River would certainly like to hear it if you have any comparable experiences, even if you're going, well, I'm pretty sure this was a dream, but still reach out.
right? Yeah. I mean, I'd love to hear anything that if there's anything similar to what I've talked about. I'm not really the best speaker, but hopefully you got something from it, and I didn't sound too, I wasn't too hard to understand. So
I think you did great, River. Yeah, I'm not sure why you would even say that. I think you did fantastic. And besides that, you're talking on an actual microphone, which everyone will be able to
yeah,
hear very clearly. So that's wonderful. No, I think that there are no, because people go, well, I think this might be connected. It may not be. And then once you really start to go down the list, it's like, oh my goodness, I don't know. I mean, to me, I'm kind of going, it all sounds a little connected to me, but I've also heard a lot of these types of things, and that's where my brain tends to go anyway.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
and that's not me acting like I know that that's what's going on. Nobody does. But I still thank you a million times over for even being willing to come on and share all of this.
Well, thank you for having me on.
I would like to thank River for joining me. You can visit him over at achievingsovereignty.com. And before I cue Electus, I'd like to welcome new Patreon members, Jetta Naimanen, Denastra, Jackie Pacheco, and Jimothy Beam. Welcome to the dark side, guys. For all bonus audio and video content, early and ad-free versions of the main show, private Discord channel, merchandise, signed books, and more, head to patreon.com/INTOTHEFRAY. And you can actually peruse over there for an entire week for free. So again, head to patreon.com and search Into the Fray. My Patreon members really are the ones who keep ITF rolling on.